Yesterday, I streamed the entirety of Far Cry 5's Lost on Mars DLC and loved every moment of it. I decided to see what other people thought when I got done with the game, and found this. What? Before I continue on with this review, I'm doing something pretty cool this month thanks to my sponsor, Voodoo.com. I'm going to be giving away a free code for Borderlands 2. I chose this game myself because you can always deal with more codes for a co-op game. Maybe you own it but your friend doesn't and you want to play with them, so enter this giveaway and throw the code at them. If you want to enter this giveaway, it's pretty simple. You have to be subscribed, click the bell notification next to the subscribe button, like the video, favorite the video, and leave a comment down below saying that you want to enter this giveaway. Like I said, this is thanks to my sponsor, Voodoo.com. Voodoo is also currently having a Schools Out sale, so if you click the link down below in the video information linking to their website and use the coupon code SCHOOLSOUT, everything will be 20% off. Be sure to go to their website through the link down below in the video information. This also acts as a tracker for my progress, so it helps me if you do that. Let's go back to Mars now. Far Cry 5 Lost on Mars is the second expansion for Far Cry 5. The first one was pretty forgettable. It didn't really add anything new, it didn't add many new guns, really only one, and honestly, it's not worth playing. Is Lost on Mars any different? Well, as I said in the intro, I actually loved this expansion, and was completely blindsided by the fact that everyone else seems to not like it. I genuinely don't see why. Let's start with presentation. Graphically, Far Cry 5 is one of the best looking games that ever came out, and Lost on Mars is no exception. The game looks downright gorgeous. Lighting is top notch, volumetric effects fit the Mars landscape, and texture work is very high quality. There were many times where I simply just kinda had to stop and look at the Martian landscape. The game looks, again, graphically amazing. Now, we could go on and on about why this game looks so good, but I don't think I really need to. You can take one look at it and just go, yeah, this is a pretty good looking game. But this game doesn't just look good, it's aesthetically fitting. It doesn't just take assets from Far Cry 5 and put them in and say, hey look, I guess you're on Mars now. It kind of does just look like Mars. Completely new guns, completely new textures aside from the rocks. This just looks like a different environment. It's really obvious you're not in Montana anymore, which is nice because I don't really get that vibe with the Vietnam DLC. Upon first impressions, it's pretty obvious that most of their work went into this expansion. The next cornerstone I want to talk about is the story. The story is, well, rather silly, but it's self-aware. And this is great. The story never takes itself too seriously and had some of the funniest writing I've seen in a Far Cry game. The best comparison I can draw to this is the story of Blood Dragon. It doesn't quite reach that bar because that's a really tall bar to reach, but it does a good job. In this expansion, you don't play as Rook, you play as Nick Rye, the pilot that you can have flying around helping you in the base Far Cry 5 game. The second protagonist in this game is everyone's favorite, Hurk. Hurk is the main source of comedic value in this expansion, and the writing always had me laughing. This shouldn't really be much of a surprise if you played the base game of Far Cry 5, it's more of Hurk. But Hurk doesn't just come in and out every once in a while, Hurk is there the entire time, the whole expansion, spouting his stupid nonsense, and it never got old. Right at the very beginning of the game, you find Hurk's severed head, and he'll be your ally that gets put into a robot dubbed the Brobot that you can command, like I said, throughout the entire game. He's always there. Not in your ear as an earpiece, but just as an ally actually shooting the enemies with you, but in Brobot form. Like the title implies, I'm not giving away any spoilers, but the main storyline goes that you find Hurk and a friendly AI trying to stop Martians from attacking Earth. There's a lot more that goes on, obviously, but I'm not going to give away any spoilers. Just know that the story is silly, it's dumb, and you're going to laugh at it more than you actually will take it serious, and I wouldn't have it any other way. As I said, the game is self-aware. It knows it's not a serious game, and that was not its intention. It was a breath of fresh air compared to Far Cry 5's base game being so serious. But none of this means anything if the gameplay isn't good, and for most of the reviews I've been seeing, people seem to harp on this more than anything else, and I don't get it. Not only did I find the game really silly and dumb, but I found the gameplay to be really fun too. This game doesn't just throw you on Mars and give you the same guns that you've been using the whole time, everything is new, built over from the ground up. The most notable difference with this game, compared to the base game, is that you have something called the Gravity Belt. For all intents and purposes, this is basically a jetpack. Now, I've never really been one for jetpacks, but the jetpack in this game is extremely intuitive and really easy to use. It goes as follows. You hold down the jump button, you'll fly upward, that's obvious. You press the crouch button and you'll crash falling to the earth. Keep in mind, no fall damage. If you tap the crouch button while in the air, you'll hover in place. You don't need to do anything else. You can float back and forth with your movement keys, so you can just sort of hover there and shoot at enemies below you. While you're hovering, it uses much less energy, so it makes it really easy to hover above enemies, shoot down at them, and just have aerial combat. It also makes it easy to go from one side of a canyon to the other by just hovering along instead of trying to jetpack your way all the way over. It feels really natural and adds to the combat, but it also addresses a problem that Far Cry has always had, and that problem is that movement has never been interesting. Let me explain. Traveling from point A to point B in Far Cry has always been a boring task. It started as a joke in Far Cry 2 with it being called Far Drive, and even though it didn't necessarily bother me because I really liked the African savannah, sometimes it was very tedious to have to get into that Jeep and go from this place to this place. Far Cry 3 tried to rectify this issue by just shoving fast travel in your face at any given moment, saying, hey yeah, it's kinda boring, so just go there immediately. Far Cry 5 kinda put a band-aid on this by giving you a grappling hook and letting you swing around, but that only happened in a few specific spots, and really wasn't applicable to most of the game. Vast majority of the time in Far Cry 5, when you're using the grappling hook, it's just to climb up on top of something, and that's equally uninteresting. The one unique, interesting movement option in Far Cry 3 and on was the wingsuit, and that was always pretty fun to use. It let you get from point A to point B and enjoyed the way you did it. You had to avoid hitting trees, avoid hitting rocks, you could maybe parachute down on top of an enemy. It gave you a lot more options and was just more interesting than running or driving there. But Lost on Mars fixes all of this by just giving you a jetpack, making movement actually interesting. You want to go from point A to point B because you want to use the jetpack. On top of this, the wingsuit is back underneath the name of Space Wings, and it makes no sense. You basically become Superman. You just put your arms out and you start gliding like you have a wingsuit, but you don't have a wingsuit. Who cares if it doesn't make sense? It's fun. Oh, and it also doesn't kill you when you run into things with the wingsuit, or you can just use your jetpack immediately out of it. Again, movement feels natural and is really fun in this game, and it's something we've never seen in a Far Cry game before. The gravity belt, i.e. the jetpack, actually allowed this expansion to bring back towers without making them feel stale. Yes, towers are back in this game, and they're called antennae. But the way you climb these towers is entirely based around the jetpack, which stayed new, fresh, interesting, and fun. I know these towers are now a trope that everyone hates, but the jetpack actually made these enjoyable. Not only was climbing to the top of these towers fun, but you also have a wingsuit, a jetpack, and can hover to wherever you want off of these towers. The jetpack allows the towers to be taller than what they usually are, and again, it's just different while still being the same somehow. It's a lot of fun. This is the biggest change they added to the expansion, and I hope Far Cry learns from this moving forward. At least some way to make movement more interesting from point A to point B. But how's the gunplay? How does that feel? Well, it doesn't feel terribly different from what Far Cry does before. ADSing still feels the same, hipfiring still feels the same. It's still the same gunplay, but the guns themselves are very different. There are 4 categories of weapons in this game: pistols, beam rifles, rifles, and shotguns. The one complaint I have about this is that they basically all look the same but with different colors depending on whatever category you're looking at. With that said, they all act differently, so I couldn't complain too much. For example, maybe one of the shotguns fires a line of lasers in front of you that does the most amount of damage out of all the shotguns, but you really gotta be close to really maximize that damage. Whereas the next shotgun just fires one giant ball at them but doesn't have much range. Or take the pistols for example. The starting pistol is, well, just that, kind of a starting laser pistol. But the next 2 are more explosives. One is kind of a laser rocket launcher, if you will, that makes a big explosion, and the other one is also sort of a rocket, but this one has the ability to lock onto enemies. It doesn't do as much damage as the other one, but it does fire faster and makes it easier to aim. Within the rifles category, there are 2 rifles, one of which is kind of a starter, if you will. The next one is a better, harder hitting stunning rifle, and the third one is actually a sniper rifle that feels different from anything else in the game. The most unique and interesting weapons in the game are definitely the beam rifles. They fire one continuous beam at an enemy until the enemy literally explodes, with the exception of the third one, which will turn the enemy into either a cow or a chicken. Now this may sound like a gimmick, but it actually does have a gameplay mechanic there. Once this enemy is turned into a cow or a chicken, other enemies near it will want to attack it, and once it takes damage, it literally explodes for no reason. This explosion is pretty big, not only killing any enemy that attacks it, but also launching them into the air. It's a gimmick, sure, but it has a gameplay function on top of being hilarious. Once you technically quote-unquote kill the enemy by turning them into a cow or a chicken, they're no longer a threat to you, but they're also going to diverge the attention of the other enemies onto them instead, away from you. There's also a similar thing, like a grenade that will turn into a chicken, and it does the same thing. You have some other tools in this game that weren't in the base Far Cry 5 game as well. For example, something called the Cock Blocker, yes that's the actual name in-game, that will make you invincible for a short period of time. There's also another tool that will make you cloaked, making enemies not attack you. You can still shoot them, but they won't attack you back, but it does eventually run out. It's pretty short. The melee weapon of choice in this game is an electrical gauntlet called the Power Glove that will launch enemies once you punch them. This allows you also to do takedowns from above, and this whole thing is just fun to use. Fun fact, the Power Glove will also knock your buddy in co-op over if you punch them even with friendly fire turned off, so if you want to fuck with your friend, go ahead and do so.
Fuck you.
Run away!
Get back here, bitch.
I could go on and on about the different options I have, but I think you get the point. Everything in this game is new. They didn't reuse anything from the base Far Cry 5 game, and I found all the things they added in this game to be really fun. There's a blend of silly, but useful. The gimmicks in-game aren't just gimmicks, they're actually useful gameplay mechanics. And I haven't really seen this since Dino D-Day came out way back in 2011. I should talk about the enemies, because I haven't mentioned them yet. They're not just cultists that have been transported up to Mars somehow, they're actual Martian bugs. There's a bunch of different variations of these, including something that is called a space bat that will attack you from above. These were actually really fun to fight, because they're somewhat grounded, but can also attack in the air with, well, projectiles. They can't jump very high, but it makes use of the jetpack. Effectively nothing is hit scan. You use the jetpack to avoid the projectiles, and try to use the jetpack to get away from them. You're managing the energy of your jetpack so you don't land while fighting the enemies. They do have a sweet spot that you can shoot to do more damage, and that is on their back, so effectively you need to use the jetpack to fight them. That's the whole point of the combat in this game. There are mini-bosses called the Queens, and there are 15 throughout the map to go kill. You will occasionally fight cultists in brief side missions, not because they made it to Mars, but because you got high. Clutch Nixon somehow made his way to Mars, and this had some of the funniest dialogue I heard in the game. The Clutch Nixon missions themselves were pretty forgettable, they were just wingsuit missions and meh, but the dialogue beforehand totally made up for it, and I always wanted to go out of my way to hear what ridiculous story was going to be told.
Clutch climbed the nearest cliff, naked as the day he was born. His majestic sexual organ casting a literal shadow over the supple Martian dunes.
What the fuck is this?
Previously
Damn it.
only matched by his own thunderous ejaculate. Once he shattered the sound barrier, every alien who witnessed this event instantly became pregnant. And the substance known as the Red Rocket was never attempted again.
Although I feel like the Clutch Nixon missions aren't really going to be the most replayable, because now you know what happens before, and after that you're just flying in a wingsuit through rings, and Either way, the first time you hear these, you'll be laughing at how ridiculous the stories are. I should probably stop here or I'll be ranting forever. Point being, the game is interesting, it's funny, combat is fun, and the jetpack makes traveling actually enjoyable. I'm genuinely dumbfounded as to why this game's getting critically panned. I had more fun with this expansion than the base game, and I really liked the base game. I really don't see it. I'm just gonna go under the opinion that it's not me that's out of touch, it's everyone else. Really, that's what I tell you, just ignore the reviews and try it out. You don't need someone else to tell you what your opinion should be. If you like it, you like it. This expansion is fucking amazing. This expansion will run you for around 5 to 6 hours long, which is about average length for a regular shooter nowadays, so that's pretty damn good for an expansion. But that about sums up this review. I was really disappointed with the Vietnam DLC, but this one thankfully didn't disappoint me, and I feel like most of their effort went into this one expansion. There's not much more to say other than I highly recommend it if you have Far Cry 5. It's not standalone, so you do need to own Far Cry 5 if you want this, which is a little bit of a downer, but if you do own Far Cry 5, go get it. It's absolutely worth playing. Thanks to all you guys for joining, thanks to all my patrons popping up on screen here, and thanks to everyone that donates and does all the stuff on Twitch and does everything over on Gawkbox. I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. If you want to help out, check the link down below, that also links to my Patreon, or you can wait till the end card. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.